Hello and welcome back to part 2 of our lecture on meetings. So if you recall, in the first lecture we talked about some effective tips to help you participate in meetings. In this lecture we're going to look specifically at some of the language that we would use if we wanted to ask someone's opinion, express our own opinion, or make suggestions during a meeting. So the first thing we're going to look at is expressing our own opinion. Now obviously there are many ways you could express your opinion, so I'm going to offer some suggestions here. I don't think it's necessary to remember or memorize all of these expressions, but certainly these are some of the most common ones that people would use in a meeting setting. So maybe choose one or two that are comfortable for you, that you can easily remember, and you can use those. So the first one is, I think that. I think that we should delay this project. I think that we should wait till next week to do this. Or I think that we should extend the deadline. These are common ways to express our opinion, is simply I think, and it's probably one of the most common ones that we use. It seems to me that. It seems to me that we need more time to do this. Or it seems to me that we don't have enough money to do this right now. Or it seems to me that we don't have enough help. So again, this is also another common way you can express opinions as well. In my opinion, that's very straightforward and very clear. In my opinion, we should probably delay this project. In my opinion, we need to do this earlier than we had planned, right? So again, that's another easy way to give your thoughts on a particular issue or topic. In my view, so in my opinion, in my view, again, very similar, just changing the word opinion to view. So in my view, we should wait, or in my view, we should rewrite this report or rewrite this pamphlet. In my view, we should reschedule, right? And then of course you would explain specifically your reasoning for your view or your opinion. I believe is also quite commonly used as well. I believe, and you can add in whatever it is you might want to say. I believe it's best that we extend the deadline on this, or I believe it's best that we wait until next year to try this project, if you're discussing a project that you want to do. I feel is also an important one, and we use this a lot. I feel this might be a little difficult for us to do right now, or I feel that maybe this is becoming too complicated, or I feel that we need to make this process simpler. There are, again, any number of things you could express here, but I feel is certainly a commonly used expression for opinions. Of course, the last one is the way I see it. The way I see it is we don't have enough money for this right now. Or the way I see it is we're going to need more people if we want to achieve this by a certain date. Right? So the way I see it is also another common expression for expressing your opinion. Again, as I said before, don't worry about trying to memorize every single one of them. Choose a couple that are comfortable for you and just simply try to use those. That would be the best recommendation that I could make. All right, let's move on to asking for opinions. So not only do we want to express our own opinion in a meeting, but it might be important to ask the opinions of others. What do they think? What are their thoughts? So let's look at some common expressions we use for that. So the first one we see here is, do you agree or don't you agree? So I've made a suggestion. Maybe I said that, I feel we don't have enough money for this project right now. Do you agree? Don't you agree? I'm trying to get their opinion about what I've said, right? What do you think about? What do you think about delaying this until next month? What do you think about changing the date? Right? So you can add in what you're asking to the other person, right? Whatever information that might be. How do you feel about? How do you feel about changing the date? How do you feel about waiting until next month to carry out this project? How do you feel about delaying our event or our conference? So as we can see here, we have what do you think about and how do you feel about. Sometimes these can get confused, where a person will say, how do you think about something, but that's actually not correct in English. It's how do you feel or what do you think? So make sure you make that distinction clear. If you use what, you should use think. If you use how, then you're going to use feel in this case. The next one is, what are your thoughts? And this is a good question to ask someone in the meeting. Maybe they're being quiet, maybe they haven't said much about a particular issue. You can invite them and just simply say, what are your thoughts? David, what are your thoughts on this? And that usually will allow them to join the conversation and give their opinion and give their ideas on whatever it is you are discussing. Would you like to give us your views on this? It's a little bit longer expression, but this one can also be used as well. So John, would you like to give us your views on this? Mary, would you like to give us your views on this? Right? So this is a way to reach out again to other people in the meeting to invite them to express their opinions about what you're talking about. Would you like to comment on that? Again, easy to use as well. Inviting someone to express their thoughts or their ideas. So Jane, would you like to comment on that? Tom, would you like to comment on that? So again, it's a good idea, especially if you're noticing people who are quiet during the meeting, who aren't really expressing much, invite them to give their opinions and their ideas. And the last one is, do you think or don't you think we should? So do you think we should delay this until the next month? Do you think we should get more people to help us with this project? Do you think we should increase the budget? Or you can use the negative. Don't you think we should increase the budget? Don't you think we should invite more people? Don't you think we need a bigger venue? Again, this is another way to ask people in terms of what their opinion is about a particular issue you're discussing during the meeting. So let's move on now to making suggestions. What are some common expressions for making suggestions? So if I want to suggest something in a meeting, obviously one of the common ones is I suggest that we. I suggest that we wait until next month to do this. I suggest that we increase our budget by 15%. I suggest that we invite more people to our event. So again, you're just making a suggestion here. My suggestion is, same thing. My suggestion is, let's wait till next month. My suggestion is, let's do this earlier than planned, right? Let's consider, or let's wait until next month. Let's consider waiting until next month. Let's delay until next Friday. Let's consider delaying until next Friday. Let's invite more people. Let's consider inviting more people. Right? So again, this is an easy one to use. And the idea of let's, of course, includes everyone in terms of what you're saying. So all together, as a team, let's try this or let's do this. Why don't we? This is very commonly used to make suggestions. Why don't we wait till next month? Why don't we send out more invitations? Why don't we change the venue to a larger place? Why don't we make sure that we are inviting more people to our event this time? So again, this is another easy way to make suggestions. Couldn't we consider? Couldn't we consider delaying this? Couldn't we consider bringing more people? Couldn't we consider increasing the budget? Again, another good way to make a suggestion to the people you're talking to during the meeting. What about if we? Or how about we? Very similar, but slightly worded differently. What about if we wait until next month? How about we wait until next month? What about if we invite more people? How about we invite more people? Again, either expression can be used to put your idea or put your suggestion out there to see what others might think about it. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is a language strategy that can actually help in meetings. And this strategy is something we call presupposition questions. The idea of a presupposition question is that when you pose this question to someone, it presupposes that what you're saying is actually right, and it would be best to agree to it. So let me explain a little bit about how this actually works. So if we look at the questions we have here, do you agree with that? Does it make more sense to? Will or would it be the same if? Should we and can we agree to? Now, you'll notice that the verbs that I have highlighted in blue are auxiliary verbs. Do, does, will, would, should, and can. These are what we call auxiliary verbs. So in terms of making a presupposition question, what we need to do is change the auxiliary verb to its negative form. So let's look at some examples of how this actually works in practice. So we talked about the auxiliary verb, and we need to change it into its negative form. So let's look at some examples. Do you agree with that? Rather than saying, do you agree with that, it would be better to say, don't you agree with that? Again, the idea of changing the auxiliary verb to the negative form is it gives your question a bit more impact, a bit more influence. It makes it sound stronger, and it tends to imply that the other person should agree with what you're saying. Don't you agree with that? Let's look at another example. Does it make more sense to? Rather than does it make more sense to, you would change does, the auxiliary verb, to its negative form, and you would say, doesn't it? Doesn't it make more sense to? So the idea of changing it to the negative form is that it implies to the listener that they should acknowledge and agree with what you're saying. Doesn't it make more sense to? Will or would it be the same if? Rather than saying will or would it be the same if, you would say wouldn't it? Wouldn't it be the same if? Again, the idea here is that you are making a stronger question this way. Wouldn't it be the same if, as opposed to would it be the same? When you say would it be the same, it's just wide open to yes it would, no it wouldn't. But wouldn't it be the same implies yes it would, and they should agree with that. Another example is should we? Instead of should we extend the deadline? Rather than saying that, shouldn't we? Shouldn't we extend the deadline? Again, it gives the question more influence, a little bit more impact to the listener. And then the last one, can we agree to? Rather than can we agree to, can't. Can't we agree to? Can't we agree to extend the deadline? Can't we agree to change the venue? Can't we agree to extend the budget or expand the budget or increase the budget? Again, the idea with these type of question is that you are trying to imply to the listener that they should agree with whatever you are saying. So let's look at this in terms of some examples ourselves for practice. So we have this question. Would it be better to extend the deadline? So if we wanted to change this into the presupposition style, what would it look like? How would we say it? Well, it would probably look something like this. Wouldn't it be better to extend the deadline? Again, as we learned, we're taking the auxiliary verb, would, and changing it into its negative form to pose the question. How about this one? Do you think this will work? Do you think this will work? Yes, maybe, no. But if I change it to the presupposition style, don't you think this will work? Don't you think this will work? Again, it's implying that they should say, yes, it will work. Don't you think? Yes, I do. It will work. So this is the concept of the presupposition style question. One important thing I should say though is it's not expected that you use this style of question for every question you pose in a meeting. That's not necessary. Sometimes just using the standard do you, should we, will you, would you, could you is perfectly fine. But sometimes when you feel like you want to give a little bit more strength, a little bit more impact, or you want to try to influence the other person to agree with your suggestion or your idea, the presupposition style can help by again changing it to don't, couldn't we, don't you, don't we, shouldn't we, and so forth. So it's just a strategy that you can use sometimes during meetings. So in this particular lesson, we've looked at how to express our opinions using expressions such as I think, I feel, I believe, in my view, in my opinion. Again, there are several different ways we could express our opinion during a meeting. We also looked at ways in which we could ask for others' opinions. So if others aren't speaking, we might ask them, what are your thoughts? Would you like to comment on this? How do you feel about this? What do you think? So these are ways that we could ask others to contribute to the conversation and hopefully give their ideas and their suggestions as well. We also looked at ways we can make suggestions. I would like to suggest, or I suggest we do something, or let's consider, let's is a common way. What if we? How about if we? Right? These are also different ways in which we can suggest ideas. Why don't we? It's another good suggestion expression. We also looked at the strategy of the presupposition question, where we change the auxiliary verb into its negative form to ask the question to the other person, which tends to make that question feel a little bit more stronger, gives it more impact, and kind of implies the idea that the person should agree with what you're saying. So that concludes this lecture. I'll see you next time for the third and final lecture. Thank you.